Welcome to my bewitching podcast, where I take you on a journey to initiate you into the mysteries and pleasures of all things magical and more. I'm Julie Nelson, Rich Witch, botanical perfumer, astrologer, and creator of the Fragrant Oracle. I'll discuss a myriad of topics passionately on women rising unapologetically, witchcraft, including spells, rituals, insightful astrology updates, and oracle card readings. I'll also introduce you to special guests who share their bountiful knowledge and experience in the art of witchcraft, the intuitive and healing arts, and being wildly unapologetic. Hello and welcome back. And this is Julie Nelson, Rich Witch, your host. And today I have a wonderful, gorgeous woman, Dania Foster, who is going to talk about being the priestess of motherhood and how we can tap into the healing energies of nature. So I am a mum, but my daughter is a woman now. So I wished we had have had more of you, although being a mama and with my daughter having two life-threatening conditions when she was born, that was actually how I got into natural therapies and got into doing my diploma of aromatherapy. And I very, very quickly realized how powerful Mother Nature and her elements and her creatures, and I say creatures because plants are living, and her trees and everything, how much support they give us. So I know very well, and I still love using it. I do use it all the time for my own healing. I've never strayed from my natural healing path. So I'm going to hand you over to Dania, because this is her field of magic and expertise. And we'll talk about, what you do, Dania, and then let's get into some plant and healing magic, because I'm pretty au fait with all the plants as well. I'm an aromatherapist. We do come from a bit of a different aspect than naturopathy, but still, we are both knowledgeable in the medicinal, spiritual, energetic aspects of the plant world. So, welcome.
I love how you said that. Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Julie. It's so nice to be here and part of this communication with you, this connection.
Yeah.
So, the Priestess of Motherhood, it came up because motherhood was such this earth-shattering sort of portal that I entered into, where I felt like in the beginning days, had no idea who I was. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what has happened to me? And, I thought I had everything down pat coming into motherhood, and then, thought you could just follow these sort of books and things would be fine. But how wrong was I? Because I was really living outside of myself when I had my first baby. I was really trusting a lot of outside forces, mainstream medical, all of these different things, who just weren't aligned with where I needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I fell and burned. I like crashed out, and just this is where, like, is it postnatal depression? What is going on? Who am I? All of these things were coming to the surface, and I felt so disconnected from who I thought I was.
Look, I totally get it. Um, we're not taught how to be a mother. I think the biggest thing that's really important is, and I'm grateful that I had this, was really trusting ourselves.
Yeah.
So I have to say this because it really, really does astound me. Um, so we didn't have the internet and all the apps and all of that when I had my
Mm.
daughter. I mean, we did have some internet, but not everybody had a computer. It just wasn't
Yeah.
a big thing. And I certainly didn't really until my daughter started to go to school. And I I really stepped into my intuition and trusted myself, and especially with, I lived in and out of hospital with my daughter for the first 15 years of her life.
Yeah.
And that's how like when she was a baby, like they kept telling me she was going to die. And that's how I just miraculously discovered essential oils very soon after,
Mm.
realized how helpful they were for our emotions. And
Yes.
so then I went and did my clinical aromatherapy diploma, and at that point I did the most extensive that was the most available. We did pathology and a lot of things that are
Mm.
just not taught in aromatherapy now. But the thing is, what blows me away, and I'm feeling from what you've just said, is that I can't believe how many women follow fucking apps as to how to deal with being a mother and their child. Like, one of the things, and I learned this very quickly, I had a lot of fighting. I was a fucking fierce mother and a warrior woman in
Mm.
our public hospital system, like
You'd
36
need to
years
be,
ago.
yeah.
Absolutely. And we've got to treat our children like individuals, and apps and books do not do that. I'm not saying
Mm.
they're not valuable, but it's like, don't fucking let. I have met mums who basically bring up their children by an app, and I'm not here to attack anybody. I'm just
Mm.
saying trust yourself, trust your intuition,
That's exactly
and
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So what happened with me is that everybody was telling me just write it down, follow the app, the Wonder Weeks or whatever it is, put her feeds every time you're feeding her, do it every like this time in the app and follow that for your feeding schedules, follow that for your naps and things like that. And I kept going back to the maternal health nurse saying, it's not working. There's something wrong. And I'm like, she doesn't sleep. She just screams. There's something wrong. And they said, oh, well, looking at the times that you're feeding and all of these times, everything's fine. And I was thinking, it's not fucking fine. There's something wrong. But because my self-worth was so low at that point, I was like, it's all my fault. I'm a terrible mother. And
Mhm.
this is all because I'm not doing it right.
Mhm.
And I was a teenager who was very witchy and into energy healing and meditation and spending time and communing with nature. But as I grew up, I had put all that aside to move into the corporate world, and I was working in health insurance for fuck's sake. Like this is like the worst place for me. And so I
Exactly.
was following very rigid mindsets, is like this is the box that you need to be in. So I thought that I was failing, and I didn't want to tell anybody that I was failing.
Mm.
So I was pretending that everything was fine until, hit that rock bottom, having a meltdown, and then having to be like, what am I going to do? And then just getting that big rush of intuition that you just can't ignore to say, like, because I had done 1 year of my degree for a Bachelor of Health Science naturopathy. And then I
Mhm.
had put it off to move across the country following another big hit of intuition to move in with my husband. But
Mhm.
I'd put it off and I hadn't done it for 7 years. I had this big rush of intuition with a newborn baby, like saying, you have to go back to that. She needs
Mhm.
more. And so I started practicing Reiki on her, and I started doing, working with nature, working with food as medicine, and started studying again. I started my degree back, and we reignited that and been on that path. She's 12 now, so we're long
Mhm.
past it all, but just, how much she thrived. And I took her to other healers when I didn't trust
Yeah, I did
myself.
too.
And
Mm-hmm.
they said, oh, like I went to a kinesiologist and they said, oh, her energy's saying that she only wants Reiki. And I was like, well, that's what I do. She had come to me for that reason. And so my journey into motherhood was all about that trusting yourself because I didn't at all in the early days. I did not trust myself at all. And I thought that it was all, everything I was doing was wrong.
And
But
everybody has an opinion. Everybody wants to tell you. And I know it comes from a place of good, but again, we are each individuals and our babies are individuals. And that intuition, that is real. That is, we know what we know. And
yeah.
especially with babies, like I fought like a fucking demon in
Mm,
hospitals and with doctors. And my daughter was never neglected. She had to have medical procedures. She had to be on certain pharmaceuticals. But I trusted myself with that and I brought in everything natural and energetic that I could. The
yeah.
essential oils worked the best on her, probably because I knew what I was doing. I trusted myself, and that's what she aligned with. And I mean, I got accused of neglect by nurses that had no fucking idea about our history. And
Mm,
um, just there are a lot of great nurses, but there are a lot of doctors and nurses that really shouldn't have been in
mm,
the field, and because you're often not heard, and if you don't know anything, they don't even tell you anything. So I was studying anatomy and physiology, and one of her surgeons said to me, "Gee, you ask a lot of questions." Nobody ever asks me questions like that, and
yeah.
doctors that said, I don't believe in what you're doing, Julie, but something's working, so keep on doing it, and then others that would be curious, and it's so, so important. And I'm just going to say this and I'll hand it back over to you. Like, we step into a world of unknown. It's not something for me because I was way ahead of having children than you were. Um, we're not, it's just something that's not even spoken about, and when you think of some indigenous people that would just sit by a tree and drop a baby and they knew exactly what to do and that's what they did and they trusted themselves. For all the technological stuff that is out there, it is not always the best, especially when you're dealing with a human being. And
Absolutely.
you've got to
Yeah.
listen to your baby.
Mm, that's it. And one of the things that came through for me was that it's not our job to prove the why of why these things
Absolutely.
work or why we're following this intuition path or why we're doing these practices that we're doing. It's not our job to prove or explain why. We just have to uh, embody that practice and then watch the outcome. And I can say now, like, my child, we went through so many struggles with anxiety, with gut problems, with all of these things, where I ended up pulling her out of daycare, quit my corporate job, and just said, we're just coming home and we're coming back to basics. And I started making all of our food and following this GAPS
Mm-hmm.
principles for gut healing and bringing it all back with food as medicine back to basics.
Love it. Love it.
And yeah, really following these ancestral nutrition principles of how we lived, like how we're supposed to live in attunement with nature.
Can I share something about eating as well? Because my daughter, she was 2 months preemie. And first of all, back in those days, here's something interesting, but remind me to talk about food that the hospital wanted me to feed my daughter. Fuck.
Oh,
And I
yes.
fought with them all the time about that. But oh God, what was I going to say? What were
Food as medicine.
oh,
And
food is medicine, but there was something. Oh, I'll talk about that. I'm sure it'll come up again because it was something else that you said, and I thought, oh, absolutely. But with food as medicine, so my daughter was 2 months preemie. That's right. This is what I was going to say. And I had a classical Caesar,
mhm.
and so. when she was, didn't matter, when she was in intensive care, because she was born with a rare condition and a lot more babies are born with it now. And I just wanted to nurse her all the time, and they'd say, like have her on my chest, and they'd say, "Oh, you're making a rod for your back, put her back in the
Hmm.
crib," and da da da. And I used to go, "No, she's missed out on two months in my womb." Like I trusted myself, and I did what I
Mm.
felt was right, because she had a cords and all kinds of drips and all kinds of things attached. I never saw her face
Mm.
properly for about a month because it was all taped in tubes and stuff. But I would lie there, I'd pack myself up on an armchair and then another chair, and I'd put my feet up and I'd lay back and she'd just be on my chest. And I
Hmm.
was forever, they were saying to me, "You got to put her back, you got to put her back." And I'd go, "I don't think so. She's staying with me." I only got up to eat occasionally and go to the loo. And
Yeah,
not long after that, they brought in the thing about women with preemie babies and putting them on their chest. I did it
skin to
naturally
skin.
before
Yeah,
they even brought that in
yeah.
to the practice of women
Mm.
having preemie babies. It's just like, they can hear your heartbeat, you're holding them
Mm.
safe and secure instead of being pretty much naked in their bed because they've got so much strapped and they've, been prodded and poked all the time. This is in a hospital situation.
Yeah,
And then with food, because she wasn't thriving, she was anorexic up until her mid 20s, but it wasn't nervosa. She used to eat well. It was because she was constantly unwell and her body couldn't sustain the weight. But they wanted me to always have her on a fatty diet.
hmm,
And I just said no. My daughter's going to choose what she wants to eat because I knew that she would choose, her body knew what she wanted. And my gorgeous woman, daughter, she'd eat a whole, yes, and it didn't gain weight, but she would eat a whole bowl of broccoli and spinach with lemon and butter and tamari, and that's what she wanted. So I felt that's what she needed. She
yeah.
had ice creams and things like that, but I just wouldn't they'd say, "Go and get a McDonald's" and things like that. And I just used to say, "I'm not fucking doing that. She'll end up having issues when she's older." And
Mm.
even with antibiotics, they wanted her on antibiotics every day for the rest of her life. And I went, absolutely no. She will be
Yeah.
on them when she needs them because she has chronic lung disease. Because even today at 36, she has ongoing gut problems from all the medication she had. Now, in saying that, the medication, she had two life-threatening conditions, so she had to have certain medications and surgeries and but my thing is to bring them together when it's necessary, use it as a holistic treatment. And they wanted her to eat eggs and things like that, and custard, and I say she can't. She's allergic. She used to break out in welts.
Mm.
And dietitians, I'm sorry if there's any listening to this, but they were the bane of my fucking life. I used to
Hmm.
argue with them constantly. They used to threaten not to let me take my daughter home because I wouldn't feed her the shit that they wanted me to because it was very textbook stuff.
It is, yeah.
And I used to get, down spoken to by some nurses because of my natural therapies and
Mm.
who knew nothing like she was always treated medically.
Yeah.
And so in the end, what I used to do was, because they would change, she would choose, her meal back then would be lamb cutlets with roast potatoes and broccoli and anyway.
Yeah.
And they'd throw that out. And can you imagine turn up with scrambled eggs which were dehydrated eggs that they would rehydrate. And even knowing, I'd say to them, she's allergic to eggs.
Mm.
Like, so in the end, I just used to throw it all in the bin and
Yeah.
friends and family, because I actually lectured at Nature Care College in Sydney I was a lecturer in
Yeah.
clinical aromatherapy, and we were in North Shore at that time. So my friends from the office, because I was the buyer in the shop. I don't know if you know
Mm.
Nature Care College in Sydney,
I
but
do know it. Yeah.
yeah, I was a student there, and I also lectured there for 13 years.
Hmm.
So friends and family used to bring me in good home cooked food for her and I all the time, because I used to
Mm.
live in hospital with her. And then so trust yourself. And I used to
Yeah.
see a lot of mums in hospital that would be just crying and devastated, which I did too, but they wouldn't know what to do and they didn't know
Hmm.
what was going on. And I used to say to them, ask questions. It is your right. This is your baby, and trust your gut feeling. Don't let it
Yeah.
be overridden. And I was constantly doing that.
And I know exactly what you mean when you get that you get told that you're doing the wrong thing by your child. I had that because I removed grains from her diet and she was
Mhm.
still at daycare at that point, and they thought that I was like restricting her too much and everything like that. We ended up pulling her out because I'm just doing our food at home because
Mhm.
it was too hard to communicate to them how I wanted
Mhm.
her to be fed with all of these whole foods. And even if I would bring her whole foods to there instead of using their kitchen, and they wouldn't feed them to her. So it was
Yes.
just, we've got to just, I said, that's enough. We're not going anymore. She didn't want to go. We used to have so much anxiety about leaving the house that she would scream and hold the door frame, and we'd be trying to get out the door in the morning. It was a nightmare. And so this is where it just comes back to trusting yourself. And we all just came home. And then after, like, it was probably about by the time she was 3, that we were completely off of all grains. And she said to me, my tummy's not hot anymore.
Oh, bless. They know.
And she
They
knows.
know.
And she, even now, like we've slowly added a few different grains in, but we're completely like gluten and wheat free.
Yeah.
We've worked out now that we're both celiac, but, down, like just knowing that, like nobody wanted to investigate that and always were, saying that I was doing the wrong thing by removing like grains being, the pillar of the food pyramid.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we're
No.
not doing them. We're just doing meat, veg. That's it. Um, really coming back to basics that was, but yeah, and now she's even 12 and she will avoid grains because she's like, no, I don't like that. I don't want that. And
Good on
just
her.
comes back to really basic foods.
Yeah. It's important to listen to them unless they're wanting junk food all the time, but that usually comes from them being brought up on junk food.
Yeah.
Um, like I'm one of these people, like I'd march down the streets to see KFC and McDonald's and all those disgusting fucking corporations shut down and let's
Yeah.
have some decent food. Because you said it right at the beginning, nutrition. Our food is our medicine. Our
Yeah,
food
absolutely. And
is
I was
medicine.
brought up completely different because I was brought up on the KFC and Hungry Jack's and McDonald's foods as
I
just
wasn't.
everyday foods in my family. So I was like, yeah, really having to break a lot of cycles when I had my baby. And I was like, what are we doing? Like, what are we going to do? And that's why I had to
Mhm.
come back to my training and be like, all right, just learning a whole new way of being and how to
Yeah.
cook all over again. Because yeah, I knew how to cook some things, but they were really your basic foods and not like making, healing broths and,
Mhm.
cooking with, soaking your lentils and things like that. Like that was just
Mhm.
such an unheard concept for me of like even having them at all. It was
I
just
know,
completely
yeah.
out of the story. So I've, yeah, really felt like I've had to just relearn a whole new way. And that's been a big process for me, but it's been so important. And that's like the whole thing of stepping back into what we intuitively know, is right for our bodies.
Mm. I see. I came from a different area. There were seven children, so we always had home cooked meals.
Mm,
And I just remember, and when I lived off grid for 8.5, 9 years, I just loved, we'd go
Yeah.
wild blackberry picking, and I'd make jams and vinegars and picking, like we grew most of our own food. Like, oh my God, there's nothing like
It's
I
very idealistic, isn't it?
oh my God, I get angry. Like I'm one of these people. I've pulled up the food manager at Woolworths and said, I've made them take stuff off the shelf because it's so disgusting,
Mm.
and told
Yeah.
them off for the shit that they send to charities because it's what they used to send to pig farmers and
Mm.
expecting people to eat it. And I think they're doing, promoting that they're doing all this good stuff. And I'm telling you, people, they're not. They're fucking bastards. And anyway, the food manager said to me, oh, maybe you should get a job here as a food inspector. And I said, well, give me a job because I'd do a better job than what you're fucking doing. I've
Yeah.
done it in Coles. I've made them take trolleys of like, shelves of broccoli and kale where it's going yellow. And
Mm.
I've said to them, how dare you put that on a shelf and
That's
sell
me
it?
this last week walking around the shops going like, because our local market's not closed because it's opening this weekend, but it's been closed for the holidays. And so I'm walking
It's
around, Coles
all.
and Woolies looking at the stuff, and I was getting so angry because I was like, this stuff's terrible and it's so much more expensive than going to our natural market. And I'm like, what are they doing to people? And I'm just getting angry walking around the
Uh,
shops because they're just, yeah, it's so hard to find healthy food.
Nutritionals. Even here in the Blue Mountains, I'm struggling. Like I went to one of the well-known markets here where there's fresh fruit and veggies, and I'm telling you now,
Mm.
they were not homegrown. They came from the markets, and
Yeah.
they were some of that stuff because I thought, oh, I'm gonna buy some fresh veggies. And I did not buy one thing because I didn't think it was worth buying.
Mm.
When I lived up in the Northern Rivers, I lived near Nimbin, and every Wednesday there was a tiny market in the town, and there's a grower, no pesticides used, and their fruit and veggies like were amazing, just like
Yeah.
homegrown. And you could put them in the fridge and they'd still be fresh 3 weeks later. Not that you
Mm.
kept
Yeah.
them that long, but um, and it's just appalling that we don't have the access to all of that. And I think there's a great lack of education on what people are buying. Or one thing that annoys me is when people complain and they won't do anything about it. It's like
Yeah.
stand up and fucking speak. Tell them at Woolworths, Coles, and Aldi that the food is not fresh enough and it's not good enough, instead of just settling for it and buying it. Like I really get like
Mm.
it's the people's responsibility to
Mm.
stop accepting the shit.
And I think so many people just don't know what other options there are because we have been conditioned to just accept these as the easy option. Like there's a
Hmm.
Coles and Woolies on every corner, there's something that's so close and convenient. And with people's modern day lives are so busy, and a lot of my clients, they're rushed, they've got kids going here and there, and they're just picking stuff up on the way to things. And so it's like coming back to a whole new world once again to have these um sort of a shifts in the way that we do things to say it's going to be like this weekly ritual to go to my local food market and pick up this fresh food that I know is such good quality because the colors are brighter, it's firmer, it is
Mm.
lasting longer, it tastes better. All of these things like pesticide free, all of this is so much better for us, but it takes that effort to go a bit. I'm driving further. I'm driving past like probably
I
four Woolworths to
know.
get there.
But isn't it nice when you pick it? Like I find it quite
It
ritualistic.
is. It
We
is. It's
don't
the
we
ritual.
we don't have enough places here. We just
Mm.
don't for the demand. And but I just love it. Like I get excited when you look at food that is really good quality and fresh. It's just like, oh my God, like, it's like,
Yeah, it does makes you excited and you can
yeah.
smell that difference when you're walking
Mm.
around and it makes you think about all of these different dishes that you could make from that. It is so much
Hmm.
different. And I've got a fortnightly meat order that comes from
mm,
a local, like the local farmers, and getting
mm.
good quality meat. I think it's so important to get uh spend the money that you can on the good quality, and then everything else. Well, it's one of your big rocks when you're looking at your goal setting and things like that. It's a big
Yeah.
rock to go in first, and then everything else can fall in around that. It shouldn't be last.
You just triggered something that I want to say too. Like, I don't eat meat anymore, and I don't need to because iron stores in my body very well. So I'm really
Yeah.
grateful. Um, so this is quite shocking, and I tell people at any opportunity that um, we have an overkill of red meat and white meat, and more animals are slaughtered and more seafood and fish is caught that can be consumed. So every
Mm,
week, now I know this because when I lived down south, I met this lovely, lovely older woman, and she was telling me how and she was a charity worker, and she was telling me how her son was a truckie, and he used to get upset because every week they take tons and tons and tons and tons of meat, seafood, and fish, and it's dumped in the ground because it is overcooked. It cannot be consumed.
yeah.
Like, fuck. And it's all
Yeah.
about money. And
Mm,
and I'm sorry that it
it
is.
is.
I don't begrudge anybody money. I really don't. I love it if people have a lot of money and they can give to the world, like fucking Elon Musk and all these other billion trillionaires, instead of putting money into, you know, things that we actually are not a priority. Imagine what
Mm,
the world would be like if people like that put it into this planet and
mm.
to
That's the thing.
food
It's so
and
important to step away from those major corporations and just spend
Mhm.
the money that you have on getting the good quality of the small amount that you need, because we don't need very much, as you're saying.
Don't.
And just
Yeah.
get a small delivery, like once a month or once a fortnight, coming from a local provider,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's grass fed, grass finished. It's, if you can go
They're
organic, then do
treated
that. It's
they're
treated
treated
better.
more kindly because a lot of people don't realize how stressed these animals are. They're sentient beings.
Mm,
They're not stupid. They smell death. They feel it. They sense it. And imagine the toxins of stress running around their bodies, their bloodstream, and every cell of their being. And then you're eating that,
yeah.
carrying that. When I did eat meat and we lived off grid, we would get, like, I can't stand the thought of it now, but we had friends that would always have a few goats and
Mm,
they would use them for meat. So we used to buy meat off them. And then other friends that had beef, and one of these people was very wealthy, so he had his own butcher, everything. And
yeah.
they didn't overgraze the land. They just had a few,
Just
and
have
then
what you need. Yeah.
yeah, a group of us would go, okay, well, we can't eat a whole cow, so how many of us can go in to buy a cow? And even
Yeah.
then, when you get like an eighth or a quarter, that's a lot of meat.
Yeah, and it
Um,
lasts you. And
yeah.
this is why, like, living in community and creating co-op within your
hmm
community can be so important, because it shares that load as well. And that's something
hmm
that I really love about this sort of slower lifestyle as well, is creating these
I'm
co-op opportunities.
I miss it. People think we're in the country here in the Blue Mountains. Well, it's not. For me, it's like living in the city because I
Yeah.
have lived off grid and I've lived out, and I
Yeah.
and I love it. I have to admit I'm struggling living around people,
Yes.
the ignorance and the just it just affects my emotions, my nervous system, and it it breaks my heart. So I have to be really, really mindful of
Mm.
that. And
Yeah. You've got to create the sanctuary within your home space. I think when you're in a
Mm-hmm.
space like that, because I grew up like on the borders of state forests where we like that was pretty much my backyard. Whoops. And had acreage and things like that as well. And I wouldn't say it was like off grid or anything because we still had like towns and things like that close
Mm-hmm.
by. And now I live in suburbia
It's
and
hard,
it
isn't
can
it?
feel really suffocating when I don't just have that state forest at my back door. I don't just
Yeah.
have the mountains to just go into and retreat. So being a very introverted person as well, creating home sanctuary has been so important to me. Creating spaces in my home, creating just space to really
Mm-hmm.
slow down has been
Mm.
so important. Yeah, to be able to, I don't think we can connect into our intuition if we don't have space to feel safe to slow down.
Absolutely, and trusting ourselves. And my home is my sanctuary. And yes, I have beautiful bushwalks and all that, but there's also a shitload of tourists that leave a mess and it's disgusting. And but there, I know of a few places that I can go where not many other people go, so I'm grateful for that. But it's still not the same for me as living in it.
Yeah.
Living in the midst of it is just pure magic. But I hear you and I agree.
Mm.
This is such a big topic. We could go on and on, but let's come back to um, the priestess, being the priestess of
Yeah.
motherhood. And I mean, we've been pretty frank here. I know I am. It's
Yeah.
just trust yourself.
And I think that it's also about having that, like what you were talking about, is the confidence to stand in your power, to
Mm-hmm.
take your power back, to reclaim. That's been a whole like reclamation has been my journey into the becoming the priestess of motherhood because it takes that building that confidence within yourself to stand by the choices that you're making,
Mm-hmm.
voice your choices. That's a huge part of it is being able to stand by it and voice your message and what you want for your family. Because like I've had another two children since I was talking about my first one.
Mm-hmm.
And we've pulled them out of school completely. We unschool, we free birth my last baby, all of these things because and we had a lot of kickback around people and family saying that that's not safe, you're not doing the right thing by them, and just having to block everybody out and stand in the power and say, you don't get to have a say here. This
This is,
is our
yeah.
choice. This is our family. This is what we're building and this is what we're trusting. And that, like stepping into that role as priestess is, it's standing in the physical. It's standing in, the path of being that sacred leader of your home. You're the one that has to make the decisions and stand by them and fulfill them. And it's also having that connection to the higher power, the divine that is guiding you and giving you that intuition, that inner teaching to know what path or what is the next step on this path. So I think that's really important to be able to have that embodiment entwined with empowerment, to trust it.
And I love hearing this from younger mums like yourself, and I know quite a few very empowered, whether they're with a partner or on their own, and they're very empowered when it comes to this because let's face it, our school systems are archaic, they're fucked up.
Yeah.
They indoctrinate, they're just hospitals and schools to me are like disastrous. And I'm only going to talk about this country. I'm not into comparing
Mm.
country with country because, yes, we are better off than others and we're not as we need to focus on Australia. Now, I am not Australian. I was born in New Zealand and I moved here in 1975.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had my daughter, I did put her in the public school system for a little while, and I had to pull her out. It was way too traumatic. Had teachers that just didn't hear you. She had to have medication every day,
Yeah.
for a whole lot of different things because she was a toff, is a toff, but she's also she has chronic lung disease. I don't even like using the word disease, but it's a fact. She's
Mm,
similar to CF, but she's not CF. And anyway, I just had to pull her out because we would both cry every day. Because I was a single
mm,
mum as well. We would both cry every day. And every fucking day, she had one teacher for 2 years. Every day I would be telling her the same things. And I lost it with two teachers, one in a public school and one in an alternative school when she was a teenager. But it's just like, how many times do I have to tell you? So I pulled her out and I wanted to homeschool, but it was much, much harder back then.
mm,
And also, I was afraid that I would isolate her too much because she was already afraid of being around people.
yeah.
Um, imagine being prodded and poked consistently throughout your life and surgical procedures and some very awful bedside manners. And then because by medical practitioners, and then because she had a rare condition, all the students used to get brought in and um, but I gave her her power back. I said to her, it's
Yeah.
your choice. You can say no to them. You don't
Yeah.
have to let them touch you if you don't want to. And even with her specialists, I got them all to like, I want my daughter to be empowered. I want you to talk to her.
Mm,
She's old enough now. Don't talk to me for her, talk to her. And
yeah.
so that was really empowering for her as well. And we have to educate other people. But she
Mm-hmm.
went to Steiner, which the primary was unbelievable. They were fantastic. I'm still in contact with her original teacher there, but sadly she left because she had a child. But I only ever had to explain my daughter once. That was it.
Mm,
Not every single day until we got to
yeah.
high school. And I'm showing a bit of the warrior woman in me here, where I was sitting having a teacher parent meeting because my daughter, um, she was really struggling. I ended up pulling her out of school. School was not important. Her health and happiness was far more important. And she was
Absolutely.
actually very bright because we used to do art and reading.
Mm,
And she's way above um, whatever they want to call it. I'm not into rewards and all of that sort of shit with kids either because I think it makes them too competitive against each other. But this one teacher, every time I spoke to her, she'd be looking around the room. And in the end, I said to her, I won't say her name, I almost did. So and so, oh, let's say, Susan, I feel like I'm talking to a fucking brick wall. You do not ever look me in the eye when I'm having a conversation with you. I need you to hear
mm,
me. And she nearly fell off the chair and she said, I beg your pardon. And I said, I need to know that my daughter is safe.
mm,
And you do not look at me. You're constantly looking around the room, and I don't know if you're hearing me or not. So don't be afraid to stand up for your children. I don't give a shit what
absolutely.
people thought about me or think
Yeah.
about me because I was about my child feeling safe and secure so that I could also feel safe and secure to be
Yeah.
able to, as a single mother, go out and work to help support us.
Yeah.
And because sole parent pension wasn't enough, and her father was, I don't even give a shit of his family and him hear this, he was fucking asshole and useless. And
Mm,
so I had to work as well, and I couldn't work all of the time.
mm,
So I'm very much for women standing in their power and loving themselves
Absolutely.
and knowing that they are worthy of so much
Mm.
than what society allows, because we are still being dumbed down.
Yeah. There's a
And
whole lot that needs to be supported to help women get to this place. So like
hmm
these are the big things that I support women with is like building up that mental capacity, building
hmm
up that self-worth, helping or supporting that anxiety that I know is rampant within women these days,
hmm
anxiety. And that's energetically as well as there's stuff that's missing nutritionally within our bodies that's causing
hmm
anxiety to take hold. Um,
Yeah.
so like this is why I say like we need to have this physiological tactics to be able to support, but also we can't do it without the energetics. And this is like I started with just
Oh,
energy
one.
healing, doing just Reiki and meditation guidance and energy healing for my family, and it wasn't enough. And I
No.
needed to do the nutritional healing and the deep gut work and all of these different things to be and herbal medicine, yes, to bring it all
hmm
back together to work because we can't do it without both together.
No, it's holistic. This is what we mean when we
Mm,
talk about holistic work. And there are cases like life-threatening cases and other cases that where, yes, medicine has its place, but sadly, we live in a pharmaceutical world. They have
mm,
conditioned people like, fuck, it's
yeah.
unbelievable. And as I said, I used to fight them in the hospital, and I wasn't putting my daughter's life at risk. And
And
that's
like you say, like
important.
pharmaceuticals are life changing. Like they can save lives. And whether
Yeah.
that's antibiotics or
They can also kill
antidepressants,
lives.
they can, yeah. But it's all about balance and it's all about not
Mm-hmm.
leaning into them as your only support structure. So if you
Yes.
are, say, for example, taking antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications, using them as a bridge to get you to a place where you can implement rhythms and rituals that are going to build you up and support you long term. Because sometimes we're in a place where we can't actually get out of bed and do the
Yep.
practices that are going to make us feel
Mm-hmm.
better or make the food that we need to heal. But we need something that's going to get us out of bed and have that motivation and that level of clarity within our mind to do the first step. And then
Yes.
once we've got the first steps happening, we can slowly wean off, replace with some other herbal and nutritional things and build bridges. I'm all about building bridges for women
I,
back.
I love that term. I love that term. And the thing is, too, is I know, like I've been in situations like I consider myself like I'm quite well versed in good nutrition,
Mm,
and there have been times in my life where I simply haven't been able to afford it, and the difference, the impact it has had on my body, I can't
yeah,
think as
yeah,
well. So it's important for people to know, like, oh, I mean, I'm a salad girl, a veggie girl. I love fruit,
mm,
and when you eat good combinations of food, you feel like lighter. Your head is more clear, and um,
yes,
and to be honest with you, buying shit food is not necessarily cheaper. People
mm,
say this all the time. They think it's cheaper to buy junk food. It actually isn't. And
yeah,
I've never been a big junk food eater. I hate it. I mean, I grew up where, well, McDonald's didn't even exist. There
mm,
was a KFC later in my life, and that was much better than what it is now. But it was a treat. It
mm-hmm,
was something we might have once a month,
yeah,
not, even if that,
mm,
because there were seven kids in my family. I grew up in New
yeah,
Zealand. Both my parents worked, but it was all about home cooking. And my
mm,
mother taught us all to cook. Some of us
yeah,
were better at baking, some of us were better at doing other dishes. And the first thing she taught us to cook, it might not be so healthy, but I remember my experience. It was hilarious. How to make gravy, a good gravy, and not with powdered shit and all that.
mm,
We're talking from the meat juices and, butter and flour. And
Mm.
I was only supposed to make a little bit, but we had a big electric fry pan, and I ended up with this bloody thing to get the lumps out of it. It was just a whole,
Just keep going. It's like the
yeah,
never-ending pudding. Yeah.
and until I got it perfected, it was just so funny. But um, you know, we just, and I'm grateful for that. That shit wasn't
Mm.
around. Like if we had once a week, wasn't it? We would have a treat once a week. So it was either go down to the local fish and chip shop
Yeah.
and get fish and chips, which, by the way, you cannot even imagine what it was like back then to what's served up now. I can't eat
Yeah.
things like that anymore. It's just shit. And
Mm.
or we would allowed to have like some potato chips and popcorn with a soda, like we called it ice
Mm.
cream soda. I've forgotten what you call it over here, or a milkshake that were homemade, right?
Yeah.
Or a chocolate, iced chocolate. And that was a treat. Once a week, we got one or the other. And that was usually on
Mm.
Friday or Saturday night when we'd sit as a family and watch a movie together and stuff like that. But
Simplifying, isn't it?
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, I grew up, say we would cook at home, but it would be using jar sauces and
no.
powdered gravy and things like that. So it's not cooking from the scratch. And that's what I've been relearning how to do over the years is how
I
to bring
love
these
it.
practices back in and then teaching my kids how to do that because this is how we break these cycles and build like wellness
Mm-hmm.
practices into generational wellness is teaching them these practices and teaching them how to simplify our needs and that we
Yeah,
really don't need very much and that's okay. And so
yeah,
it's taken a lot of healing and a lot of changing habits from what we're grown up doing as the simple,
mm,
easy, convenient way of being is it hasn't been serving us and has been generating illness long term in so many
absolutely.
people. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, like looking at my eldest now, like having so many issues with anxiety and gut health, and now she's like we talked about anxiety the other day. She's like, "Oh no, I have none of that. I don't have any of that in any of areas of my life." And I was like,
Oh,
"It's
bless.
interesting." She just did not resonate with anxiety as a thing at all as a 12-year-old
I
old
love
girl. She
that.
was just like, that's not a thing at all for me.
Love
And I
that.
just love that for her. And it's
Yeah.
taken a bit to get there, but this is like that holding that space as this is what I mean by like priestess of motherhood is you're holding this space and you're doing the work to be that
Mm,
sacred leader for your whole family. Because it's, let's face it, it's the mum that makes the food. She does all the organizing, the shopping, and
hmm.
gathers all of the ingredients into the home. She sets up the routine. She does all of the things. So that mom, that mother, she needs to be supported. She needs to have her
Hmm.
capacity at peak levels for her confidence in her body, her comfortability in her body. I'm just doing a lot of work around this at the moment. Comfort in your body. So feeling comfortable with the shape of your body, of the way that you
Mm,
feel, of the way
mm.
that your cycles and being in tune and understanding your body wisdom, all of this comes into play because how are you supposed to guide our young girls through their menarche if we don't have a clue what's going on with our bodies?
Well, again, we didn't have all of that, and I had a lot of issues when I was
Mm,
menstruating. And it was painful for me. I hated the only good thing to me that came out of it was my beautiful daughter.
yeah.
I used to go, bring on menopause. I couldn't wait
Mm,
because there was the lack of support and
yeah.
education. And I, like, when I think back on my older sisters and my mum, like, and what they
Mm,
would have gone through because, you know, I'm second to youngest. My eldest sister's 82. All right.
mm,
So big family. Um, and I was just going to drop back into the food aspect too, because my mum, like, we would have cupboards full of homemade preserves,
mm.
pickles, stewed fruits. Um,
Oh, yeah.
she used to make tomato sauce. It wasn't anything like that. any of the bought stuff. Like, it was beautiful. And I'd wake up and get up. Well, we would wake up and get up in the mornings, and she'd have, two of the kitchen chairs with a broomstick with the big muslin bag with all the fruit, the juice dripping because she was going to make jam or jellies.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I got to explore and experience that,
Mm.
because I've brought it forward. And my
Mm.
daughter, I have to say, she's amazing. She's a researcher, because she's nearly died several times. She is so careful. She's constantly doing gut work,
Mm.
but her stomach was also operated on. So there's a lot of stuff there, but it's education and being open to it. And I want to say this, and I know that we live in a busy world. However, food and education around food and taking care of ourselves has to be a priority. It
Absolutely. Yeah.
has to be. And I just also want to add that we're going to acknowledge that there are men that take the role of motherhood as well.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
you and I both work with women, so we refer to women mostly. So if any guys are listening to this,
Mm.
don't get on your high horse. We know you're there. We support you. But because we work with women, and this really is a podcast about more for women's healing anyway. So just wanted to put that in.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, I have a husband. He is home with me. He works from home. I work from home. We share the load. And I think that that sacred union in partnership is really important thing to acknowledge. And I have privilege in that aspect that I have a partner on my side with this, and he's very on board with the trusting of the process and supporting me to be in my feminine energy as well.
I love that. I mean, it should be equal in
Mm.
however that works for each individual um, relationship. And I know that finances are a big thing, it's situational for a lot of people. Trust me, I'm there. I'm now a single woman, and it's very hard. So having that support from a partner or
Mm.
family or community, because I also grew up where it wasn't okay to ask for help.
Mm.
It's taken
Yeah.
me decades. So I'm 66 now, and it's like it's taken me a long time to be comfortable with asking for help. And it comes easily now, and my friends know, and I'm there for them as well. It's like, ask me,
Mm.
I'm here, you know?
Mm. I've
So,
definitely grown up with that, feeling shame or guilt for asking for help as well. And it's been
mm,
something that still, even today, people will ask me, what can I do to help? And I'll balk at that thinking, oh, I don't want to put you out. Like,
me
you don't
too.
have to do, yeah, it's
I
still
still
a
do it.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. But yeah, it's a big thing to shift, I think, that sort of pattern.
And having support like people like you, people like me, and there's so many other beautiful, aware, natural practitioners and
Mm.
therapists out there that we need, and shame on our government for not wanting to support us either. I get really ranty about
Yeah.
that, to make it easier for people. But hey, they're all financially invested in personally with pharmaceuticals, so why would they? But um, you know, align yourself with the right sort of communities. And
Yeah.
and I'm looking at your shelf, so this is not video for
Mm.
our listeners, but Dania's got, her natural medicines on a shelf behind her. And I have to say, one of my favorite ways of treating myself, because being the aromatherapist, I use the oils all the time.
Mm. Yeah.
And I love working internally with herbal tinctures
Up
and
on my top shelf.
yeah, and externally with essential oils. I love
Mm.
herbal tinctures. I can
Mm.
feel, and the combination of the external with the aromatherapy and the internal with the herbal medicine is such a potent combination.
Yes.
And I've been doing that for 30 years. Like, I graduated in 97,
Mm.
1997, almost 30 years
Yeah.
as a fully qualified, but then, studying before that. Actually, I think it was 96.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so it's such a beautiful, honoring way, and you can create rituals from it that give you.
Absolutely. And I think of the plants as they've all got their own individual personalities. And
Mhm.
so when we are putting together a herbal remedy for somebody, we have to consider that plant's personality with
Mhm.
our person that we're treating's personality. And are they going to get along and be supportive of each other, or are they going to like fire each other up and just not give up somebody too much of something or not enough of this? We have to be really aware of how they're going to
Mhm.
interact because the herbs aren't just their constituents. The herbs aren't just their actions. They're a whole
Absolutely.
personality. And I'm not sure if you've heard of Dorothy Hall, but I love the way that she talks about plants having that personality and getting to know them on that level is has been something that's really touched my heart as well.
I did flower essences with Dorothy Hall long
Mm,
time ago. And I'm the same with essential oils. They are personality profiles. And that's why often, because I work a lot with perfumery now, because I work a lot with
mm,
the psychological and emotional, which
yes.
strengthens our nervous system. And when our nervous system is good, as you know, like it strengthens our
Mm,
immune system. And I mean, I do all the other therapeutic, but the perfumery is just the road that I got taken down. It wasn't
mm,
necessarily that that's what I chose consciously, and but they're very powerful, and they do, and it's like matching up the personalities of our client and the personalities of our plant medicine, because whether it be herbal tinctures or essential oils, they all come from
mm,
plants. They're just extracted differently, and
yeah.
essential oils are like 70 times stronger,
Mm,
and why they're best applied topically. And also, there's new research going on now where they're proving that through simple inhalation, they are becoming like more popular because it still
mm.
gets into your bloodstream on a much
Absolutely.
lower level. Yeah,
They're
and
powerful, very powerful. The essential
very.
oils is like the essence of the actual plant. It is very potent medicine.
It is, and that's why I like using them on the outside and then the herbal tinctures on for internal.
I
Um,
did see your post. I did see a post from you a little back about the dangers of using essential oils internally. So I had a little cheer about that because there's so many people that are using these potent medicines internally and they're causing some damage when we've got different tinctures that are supposed to be used in that sort of manner. So I love that
Absolutely.
you are, um, yeah, speaking to
Um,
that as well.
for the last 3.5 decades, I've been on a path of ranting about that, and with fucking MLM and doTERRA and young
Yes.
living, I'm not afraid to. I'm quite well known for it, and then they come onto my posts and say, "Oh, frankincense cured my cancer." And I'm going, well, there's actually no scientific proof. And I'm not saying it didn't, but don't go and tell everybody that, because what worked for you isn't going to necessarily work for somebody else. And the
Mm,
fact of drinking essential oils and water is just fucking absurd, because they're not even water soluble, they're oil soluble, lipophilic.
yes.
And this is why there's been so many poisoning reports, because they're creating gut issues by and I've had people say, "Oh, I don't care, it's good for me," and it's just, I had one
It's
person,
damaging to the medicine. They're going to be harder and harder to get access to if they're
yeah,
being creating so many adverse events, and then they're going
well,
to be taken away. We're not going to be able to access them unless we make them ourselves, and that's a bit hard.
and that's what my rants are about. It's like, if you want to be treated by essential oils, go to a qualified aromatherapist, and the same with herbal medicine and nutrition. Like, that's what we
Yes.
spend thousands of dollars on to study. And we're not just studying
Yeah.
the oil, we do pathology and chemistry and
Mm.
lots of hours of
Yeah.
practical, but like,
The clinical herbalism is what we call it here, but it's this is why I find it so hard to be like, well, if you're trying to do a social media post, for example, I can't personally just say, oh, this herb is for this, because it's not. It's for so many different things, and that will depend on that person's whole personality and um all of the things that they're bringing to the table, all the history, and so that's why I'm like, I want to treat you, but I want to have a deep conversation with you first and get to know
absolutely.
you and what's going on and what stories have contributed to this situation. Because
Yeah,
if you've got a thyroid condition, can we talk about what you have not been expressing? All of these different things that are bringing it to this is a holistic medicine coming together. It's like we can't just give you one thing for one thing. It's a community of
it
practice.
is. And they have, this is the beauty, and this is what I often say about essential oils. They have hundreds of different chemical compounds,
Mm.
constituents within them. And they often will cross over, and a lot of them have the same constituents. But the beauty of it is that's why we can personalize them for you, because one might not suit you, but the other one will. And so it's like doing that. We're doing a consultation, but we're also doing a personality profiling of you and
Exactly.
the oils or the plant medicine. And I just, personally, I don't think essential oils should be sold unless they're bought from a fully qualified diploma student, not even Cert 4, because they don't do all of the study.
Mm.
They shouldn't be allowed, if they're sold in chemists or health food shops, then they should have an aromatherapist on site, just like they do often with naturopaths. I don't know if
Yeah.
they still do that, but that used to be how it was.
Yeah, we've had a lot of shifts in our industry with herbal medicine and nutritional medicine being available to the public where they were previously practitioner only products. And
Hmm.
it is creating safety concerns that does put our industry into danger zones, because is it going to create more self-medicating, self-treating, more adverse reactions,
This
all of
is
these
it.
things? They're self-treat and blend all of these things together and they end up overdosing. Like you've seen B6 has been in the news and all of this. It's like, well, we don't give that much. We don't do that. If you see somebody
Exactly.
1-to-1, we don't do that.
But
So
see, people want a quick fix as well, and that's why they like
yes.
pharmaceuticals. And a quick fix is not sustainable. It doesn't actually fix you. It
Mm,
suppresses. There's a whole lot of things that need to be considered, and that's, like multi-level marketing should be illegal.
yeah.
It really shouldn't. It's not that I want to take away income from people, but what I want is for those
Yeah.
people to be responsible.
Yeah.
It is not about money. You are playing with babies and children's and adults' lives because unless you're qualified, you don't know what the fuck you were doing.
Yeah.
And
And I so advocate for, if you're going to be going down that path, then you should be investing in the education to be able to support that properly. And that's the
and
same
we're
thing as you're
not
not,
talking, sorry, we're not talking about in-house education or in-house fucking research, because that's a lot of bullshit. You do not learn
yeah,
enough.
evidence-based medicine
Yeah.
requires that unbiased education, yeah, to go with it. And uh, yeah, we need to be investing and giving the money to people who have that knowledge is something that
Mhm.
I believe, like going to the people who have the qualifications to do this because it's safer for them.
Mm.
It's you're getting better quality ingredients because you're getting ingredients that have been made to higher standards as well.
Mhm.
And you're having somebody oversee your care, which is so important.
Absolutely. So here's something I was thinking about as you were just saying this. So, okay. And it's like, this is my question. Why would anyone in our audience not come to us and they say, well, it's too
Mm,
expensive, right?
mm,
But here's the thing. And yes, a lot of it can be bulk billed or you're paying shitload of money on insurance, medical insurance or health insurance each month. And it cracks me up because lately I've been seeing where pensioners can get health insurance for $23 a week. Okay, that's almost $100 a month. Pensioners can't afford that, and that's
mm.
cheap. And I get really cranky when I see ads like that. But here's the thing. You go to a doctor, you're allowed a 15-minute consultation, you're rushed in, you're rushed out, and you usually, most people will walk out with a prescription, if not three or four.
Yeah.
And that cost of that, I don't know, what do they charge? Like, yes, it's bulk billed or whatever, but for some people it's not. So that's around $150. You go to a specialist, and again, you're lucky to spend 10 minutes
Hmm.
for just an average consult. It's $500 for
Yeah.
that. And again, you get, and I've recently experienced this, so I got really pissed off about it. Um, and then it's like, okay, goodbye. No, I'll follow up in 3 months if you can afford it, folks. You come to somebody like Diana or myself or any other natural therapist. Yes, you might pay $160 to $200, but your consultation to start, like for me, I can easily spend an hour and a half.
It's
Most,
exactly what I do. Yep.
yep, right? And and then you get follow-ups. So don't tell me we're too expensive when you're willing to, like it's about what you prioritize. And then I'm sick of people telling me that because I'm in natural therapies and all of that, that I shouldn't be charging. Well, what the fuck do you think we're going to live on? We have
Hmm.
bills to pay. We have spent thousands of dollars in our education and
Yep.
ongoing, by the way, like continuous research, continuous upgrading, um, all the insurance and all of that. And yet people
And you're setting
do
people
that.
up for life, though. You're giving, like, this is what I am working towards is that I'm building these rhythms and these rituals in people's everyday life and building up their capacity so they can maintain that and teach it to their family, teach it to their children
Yeah.
so that they don't need me. And I'm
It's,
letting them go out into the world so that they don't need to rely on me. And I'm teaching them how to be in tune with their cycles and know when they need more of this and know when they need more of that and where to get that from and how to source the right things. And then go and live your life and be healthy and happy.
we don't work to hold on to clients. And if anybody does, then I'm sorry, that's not really acceptable unless it's a special circumstances. But that's the idea. We are also educators. And
Mm,
we're teachers because we're teaching them specific life skills and, a whole range of things. It's not coming in, having a chat, writing a script and walking out,
yeah.
because I'm still an advocate for pharmaceuticals when they have a place. But when you have to have medication after medication, and then you've got to have another one to prevent the side effects of the one previous, and then another one to prevent
Mm,
those side effects, that is not good living. You are just killing your body. And
yes.
with the things that we teach and offer people, um, they're rituals that allow us to create stillness and moments of pleasure in our life. So
Mm.
I know when I drink down, I scull, I do, little shots of my herbal tinctures, which I
Yep.
just love. And I feel them go into my body. I'm lucky I understand the medicine of the plant and what it will do, and I literally feel it working. And then I've got the
Mm.
oils, and whether it's a topical application or using my perfume and I inhale it, and I actually speak an intention for
Mm.
specific for that. And then I inhale my perfume again, and that locks it into the limbic,
Mm.
right? And it also goes into our nervous system. But every time I smell that perfume or I scull that herbal shot, the what it's doing for me is triggered in the forefront of my brain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's that. It
Mm.
it's working on many different levels, not just
Yeah.
physical. So
Mm.
we got off track, but I often do. But your work, like I love what you're doing because you're wanting to empower women and
Mm.
especially women going through motherhood. So
Yeah.
what would be what would be some things that you would what could be 3 tips that you could offer here? And by the way,
Mm.
people, if you want to connect in with Dania, her website and links and contact details and bio will be in the show notes because I've only met Dania briefly, but I am so inspired and impressed by how you
Thank you.
speak, your passion. Like many of us, we live what we preach, which is
Mm.
very important. So, what would 3 tips be?
3 tips. I think that to start with, I'm just going to intuitively flow with this here, but to
Yeah,
start with,
yeah.
I think, yeah, going slow, I think is
Mm,
really important, is coming back to basics and just doing one small change at a time is really
mm,
important because I think that what happens when people go and see, for example, a naturopath is it's a really overwhelming experience a lot of the time because you might be given a whole list of things that you have to change or implement and do to get yourself back
mm.
on track. And look, I know that as a person, me, I've still got things that I can do to improve. It doesn't have to all happen overnight. So I think that the first step is really understanding that you can just do one small thing. And then once that one small thing is easy, then we can implement the next thing.
Yes, that's what I
And
like.
yeah, I've got women that I'm working with and they might come to me every fortnight for the next step. They say, okay, I've taken 2 weeks to implement this thing and now I've got that going really easily. So it might be first step is taking a flower essence just to get the emotional body ready. And then
Yeah,
come back to me in 2 weeks and be like, okay, now we'll take the herbal tincture and this will build on the nervous system. And then we'll do this for 2 weeks and make sure that that's not overwhelming because the women that I've got coming to me are very overwhelmed and they're very uh, feeling quite stuck in their ways, but knowing that they don't want to be in that way, they want to get out of that trapped
yeah.
feeling and create change.
And do it by doing it step by step, it's affordable.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
don't have to buy all the herbs and everything that's recommended
Mm.
to you at once. I love that you're saying that because
And then not
sometimes
take them because there's too many.
too many, and I do know that some naturopaths get a bit excited and they'll say, you've got to change this, you've got to change that, and you've got to have this and you've got to have that. And it's like, well, Tex, like and I'm the
Mm.
same. It's like one step at a time, one thing, make it affordable for yourself, take the
Yeah,
pressure off, and allow yourself to see the results.
exactly. Probably the next step that I'd say is, and it's about the next step of this is vagus nerve rituals. So this
Mm,
is something that I talk about a lot. I've just written a little blog about it, so you can go check that out if you want to. But these are little rituals that they don't take very long, less than 5 minutes a day. And less than 5 minutes a day, you can implement rituals. And a ritual is a sacred act that is done over and over again. So
Yeah.
it's different to your routine. We're not doing morning routines of things like brushing your teeth and da 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 da. But if we take it into a ritual, a vagus nerve ritual that stimulates your vagus nerve, which connects your gut, your mind, and the rest of your body to your nervous system and sets you into a pace of rest and digest, it tells your body that you're safe. If we can do little vagus nerve rituals for 2, 3 minutes here and there throughout our entire day, we are setting our nervous system to feel safe, which expands our capacity so we can take on more things.
Absolutely. I fucking love that because I say the same with inhaling a perfume. It's
Mm.
incredibly pleasurable. It only
Yes.
take a minute by anointing or spraying, inhaling,
Yeah.
speaking your intention. Because I love
Mm.
affirmations. They help turn my life around, so I'm big on them.
Yeah.
And then inhaling that perfume again, and it's there. And then the next time you can just pick it up and smell it. Boom,
Mm.
your intention's there. You set your reticular activating system
Yeah.
into action.
It just
And,
reminded me of when I was studying, I would use
mm,
rosemary essential oil to trigger my memory and help me keep
yeah,
my study facts in. It's so powerful. I love it.
it is. I love. Did I cut you off with a third ritual, or did you? Was that?
I haven't got to it yet, so I can give you to the third one.
Yes, yes.
So the third one that I would say is tracking. So
Mm,
tracking your cycle, track it against the moon, track it against the weather, track it against your feeling, track everything. This is why I love daily journaling. And it doesn't have to be pages and pages of information and
mm,
feelings and deep diving, but it can just be like day, day of my cycle, moon phase. The sun is doing this today. And
yeah.
a feeling can just be one word. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to take you a really long time. And because I'm working with mums and they've got little kids and they're busy, I love short little practices. So,
Yes.
but just tracking your body against what the earth is doing. What's the earth season in? And how does your body feel in connection to both of those together?
Yeah, and that's another thing because I work with the moon a lot and I don't always do it, but when I lived off grid, we always ate seasonally.
Mm,
Seasonal eating, like what are the vegetables and
yeah,
that are actually in season, not that are
yeah.
available because our body, we we naturally go, well, we push against it. Most people don't work with the seasons and our body needs that. So we're coming to the end
Yeah.
of summer where our life force starts to
Our gut
slow.
needs it. Our microbiome needs that change of different fibers and
Yes,
phytochemicals. Our actual body's ecosystem needs that change to eat seasonally. So
exactly.
I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah, and I love how you explained that. I'm not a nutritionalist or a naturopath. I'm an aromatherapist. But it's true, and our body
Yeah.
feel better. And I loved that about living off grid because we would only eat what we could grow
Yeah. That's why I love going
seasonally.
to the local market and getting local produce because he's like, oh, that's not here at the moment. Oh, it mustn't be in season. And you just have to find something else. Because I know that, working with a lot of neurodivergent people as well, having neurodivergent kids, is that you get stuck into safe foods and having the same thing all the time. And that can be
Mm.
damaging for your gut bacteria and things. But allowing yourself to eat seasonally means like, oh, we'll just have to deal with that not being available. So we can't just rely on that one thing. We have to try something new and bring some new things into that environment. So
Yeah.
eating seasonally is so important. I take it a bit of a step further once we get it, and I don't do it straight off the bat because it can be a bit one of those overwhelming factors. But once you've been working with me and we've got some of these basic patterns down pat and we're already eating seasonally, we start eating with our cycle in mind, eating cyclically,
Hmm.
and eating with the circadian rhythm and building these patterns into our bodies as well is something I'm so passionate about.
I love it. And women, we need it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, we go through so many different phases as women, our body. I mean, I've even noticed just in the last couple of years a big change in my body. Uh,
Mm.
you know, it's it's my mind's not slowing down, but my body is, and I
Yeah.
dance and I do hydrotherapy and that, but I can still feel my body getting, it's not as strong and I have more pain and it's, you know, just from damage.
Yeah.
Um, from working on a big property and falling off rocks and things like that, that used to
A
think, oh,
well-lived life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, it's coming into play now, or,
Yeah.
so it is important to, food is medicine.
Mm. But it's
Plants
so
are
hard to like get
medicine.
to that point where you can eat with your cycle and everything like that if you don't know where you are in your cycle. And that's why I say
Right.
tracking. Know where you are against the seasons. Know, like, again, sometimes we like, oh, is it like January already? Is it the end of January already? I feel like it's just begun. And we lose track of time because we get caught up in the busyness and we lose
Yes.
track of what season we're in. We have to think, oh, what are we doing? Where are we? And if we are just taking note and being aware of that each morning, it just brings us back into our body, back into connection with the earth and
Hmm.
nature. And it just is a little snapshot of connection.
Yes, and on that, I'm going to say, just perhaps as a final thing, is that we are nature. We are a part of nature. We are not separate from it. And I think it's very important for people to really do their best to try and grasp that. We're not humans, and that's earth, and that's water, and that's the sky.
Mm,
Everything is interconnected. And we're humans, but we are still a part of nature. We are one. And
exactly.
the more that we can, like I tell you, when I was living off grid, I still, like it was 13 years ago, the not being able to connect with Mother Earth. And it was very easy when you're living like that. And then coming into a semi-city, it's like, what the fuck? It's like,
Yeah.
it's very easy to get disconnected. And so I'm grateful that I have my essential oils and I have that consciousness. And I've got a teeny weeny weeny little garden, that I still go and talk to the plants and I grow succulents and because I just don't want to be without it. And I'm going to be starting a herbal garden soon. I don't have the space to have a veggie garden. If I did, I would
You
because I
just
just
need a
don't
pot.
like buying. Hey?
You just need a pot. That's all you need to get started.
Well, I'm going to have pots of simple things, but we had
Mm.
big gardens on the property, and that's where my
Yeah.
mind still is sometimes. But yes, growing tomatoes and capsicums or cucumbers are easy in pots, and I even fresh herbs because herbs. I love making teas out of fresh herbs, and I just love eating them raw and
Yes.
putting them in my cooking, and yeah,
Mm.
and
I
instead of
love,
a
yeah,
bunch
sending
of
the kids out into the garden to get the fresh herbs for dinner. Like that's such a nice little process and that helps to educate them, but also connect them back to the earth and that they're going out there and picking the herbs and knowing which is which. And that's
yeah.
just a little practice that I'm loving.
Yeah, I absolutely. And there used to be two young girls that used to come and visit neighbors. Like we were all on 40-acre properties. So when I say neighbor, but we used to stand there at the honeysuckle because I had a very controlled honeysuckle. It was already there. But we'd stand there and pick the stems out of the flowers and suck on the nectar and, just teaching kids all these things. And then I've got many horses and, they used to love coming and brushing the horses and then sometimes picking veggies out of the garden and taking them back. But everybody there had gardens anyway. But
Mm.
such a beautiful connection with nature itself, just being connected with nature is
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It is. You got to create time to do that.
absolutely. It's been a pleasure. You've got a lot of wisdom that I would love to delve into more on our podcast if you're open. I say this, I have people coming back repeatedly because they've just got amazing knowledge and I love people to share it and people to receive it. So if you're open to it, I'd
Yeah,
love to
of
have you
course.
back.
Yeah. I would love to. It's been an absolute honor to come and talk with you today.
Oh, it's an honor for me to have you here too. I'm loving, I'm hearing you and I'm thinking, and I'm looking at you, and you're just this vibrant young woman and a mother of three, which is like, fuck, you don't even look like you're old enough to be a mother. And it's just like the wisdom that you speak. I love it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we want more people to hear about you and hear you speak. So we'll organize that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here for that.
Yay. All right. So we had a pretty good chat. It's 1.5 hours. Went really quickly.
Yeah.
So we'll sign off now, and I'll be speaking to you after this. So
Okay.
I'll just stop recording and say bye to everybody. Remember to love us up, to subscribe, to follow, to share, and connect in with us if you have any questions. So bye for now. Thank you for joining us on the enchanting journey through the realms of magic, mystique, and self-discovery. I hope you enjoyed our time together on the Rich Witch podcast, where we delve into the depths of witchcraft, astrology, and the unapologetic rise of women. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And as we wrap up, I encourage you to carry the wisdom and magic we've shared into your own life. Embrace the power within you and revel in the beauty of your own unique journey. Stay tuned for more magic, and in the meantime, stay curious and know your magic is a gift to the world. Blessed be, beautiful ones, and remember, the magic is always within you. This is Julie Nelson, signing off.